the problems that we've had over the past couple of years with learning loss as a result of COVID are enormous, and they particularly impact kids from disadvantaged backgrounds and young kids. I mean, how can you learn how to write or how to read really over a computer? There has been a lot of learning loss that's been documented. We need effective ways to address it. That is layered on to much longer term problems. You know, in Maryland, more than a quarter of middle school students in our state can't read at a basic level. More than a third can't do basic math. Those numbers are no different than they were 20 years ago. So the blueprint, I believe, is potentially a transformative piece of legislation. But the thing that I would bring that is different in implementing it is a focus of the expanded the funds from Blueprint on programs that have actually been tested and shown to make a big difference in student outcomes. I'll give you one example. One of my main initiatives as part of Blueprint initiative as governor will be to expand high quality tutoring to every struggling first and second grader in the entire state, because that's been shown to move them up toward grade level early before their problems get serious in later grades. We're going to do it by recruiting an army of people from the community, including retirees and recent college graduates, to become tutors for a modest stipend as a public service. That's just one example. In general, for Blueprint implementation, we need to focus on programs and policies in education that don't just sound like they're good ideas, but have actually, like tutoring, have actually been tested and shown to make a big difference on student achievement and other important outcomes. Well, there are a number of programs. You mentioned one of them, but there are others that operate on a modest scale in Maryland and in other states. There's a program called Reading Recovery that my philanthropic team worked on, my nonprofit actually worked on with the Obama administration to scale up. That uses certified teachers to do tutoring in first grade. That's been found to move kids up, struggling students, from the 15th percentile to about the 45th percentile. It's very effective. There are others called Experience Corps. That's another one that uses retirees, brings them into the classroom. There's one called Reading Partners. What we would do differently is expand this approach so that we provide high quality tutoring to every struggling first and second grader in the entire state of Maryland. There are enough people from if we do it with people from the community, it's done in a cost-effective way. There are many, many retirees and recent college graduates. We would set up programs with a number of the colleges and universities around the state to enable students to, once they graduate, to do a year or two of tutoring as a public service for a modest stipend. What we are doing differently is doing it at scale so that every struggling student gets this high quality, meaningful program to move them up toward grade level so that virtually everyone is reading and doing basic math by third grade. To step back for a second, Maryland had, before Blueprint and before the Kerwin Commission, which led to Blueprint, 20 years ago, Maryland had a similar effort called the Thornton Commission. And it resulted in a major increase in education spending in Maryland, about a 40% increase during the 2000s after adjusting for inflation. That increase in spending did not result in improved student outcomes, according to the Kerwin Commission and others. The numbers just stayed flat. That's why this time the emphasis, working with through the State Department of Education and others, the emphasis in implementation of the Blueprint needs to be on not just increased spending, not just well-meaning programs, but programs like tutoring, and there are others like career academies and high poverty high schools that have actually been tested and shown to make a big difference in student outcomes and even long-term, their earnings once they enter the workforce. The idea of police accountability, I think, is very important. We've all seen with the Freddie Gray incident and the George Floyd murder, and many others, that the whole country has woken up to something that Black Americans and Americans of color have been experiencing for a long time. I was proud of the Maryland General Assembly for really passing far-reaching police reforms, including independent investigations through these police accountability boards of incidents of potential police abuse. The thing that I would do differently than others in implementing the new reforms, including these independent investigations and others, is the challenge is we don't know which of these reforms are actually most effective and which may not be effective at all. For example, there are many different types of police training. There's something called implicit bias training. There is procedural justice training. There is de-escalation training, and there are others. Do they actually work to give police officers the training that they need? Do they work to improve community trust? Do they work to reduce use of force incidents? We don't know. We don't know which of them are most effective. So as governor, one of my main priorities would be to test each of these approaches as we implement them to figure out which reforms, which types of police training and so on are most effective, and expand those that actually work. For those that aren't effective, we move on to something else. My philanthropic team funded a study of procedural justice training for police officers, which is teaching police officers, how to act in a more unbiased way when they enter an incident and to be an objective party, and also to treat people with respect. That study found it took about 1.5 years to complete. So you can get the evidence fairly soon. And in that particular study, it did find promising findings in terms of changing police behavior as measured by outside observers who were riding along with the police. It's a preliminary finding, but you can at least get a sense of whether it's working within about 1 year, 1.5 years. First of all, I think from the top of government, we need to convey a support for the police. The vast majority of police officers are well-meaning, they are public servants, and worthy of respect. There are a few bad apples, and we need to recognize that and do appropriate training and take appropriate precautions and have appropriate accountability. But I think from the top of government and among community leaders and others, and from the governor, we need a respect for what police do in terms of their very important role in public service. There are other things that we can do. Number one, training is important. Training and coaching, providing them the support that they need, like the procedural justice training and others that I've described, that they need to be successful in their jobs. That's very important. Making sure that police officers are fully paid, and that they are supported. There is the funding to provide additional supports around what they do. And also that we are supporting effective police practices. For example, the evidence says that one of the most effective approaches to policing is an approach called community policing in hotspots, which are high crime areas, city blocks within an urban area that account for more than half of most of the crime incidents. Hotspots policing make sure that the police officers are patrolling in those areas and getting out and meeting community residents, that they are securing unsecured buildings, abandoned buildings, and providing lighting at night so that the areas are more safe. It's been shown to reduce the incidence of crime by about 25% in places like Las Vegas and others where it's been tested. So we need to provide getting back to your question, we need to provide police officers with strategies that are actually effective in building community trust and reducing crime and enabling them to succeed in their job. I agree about the importance of transportation, and I'm a very strong supporter of mass transit. I support completion of the Purple Line. I support an east-west transit solution like the Red Line in Baltimore. I myself, I have ridden the bus to work for the past 25 years before I joined the race for governor. So I'm a supporter of mass transit, but I do also believe, traffic on the Beltway and elsewhere is a quality of life issue. It's an economic issue, as you pointed out. People need to get to their jobs. But it's also a quality of life issue. Nobody likes sitting in traffic. I do support the partial expansion of the Beltway that has been proposed in the southern part of I-270 and from the I-270 spur through the American Legion Bridge. What it will offer, that kind of approach, the approach that's been that appears to be going forward there, the partial expansion, builds on a successful approach in Virginia. It will add additional lanes that that drivers can access for free if they have a high during rush hour, if they have a high occupancy vehicle, 2 or more drivers, or if they're a single driver, they can pay a toll to access those lanes. And what it does is it ensures that even during rush hour, there is a non-congested alternative that they can use. It also has been found in Virginia to modestly reduce traffic in the regular lanes by providing an escape valve. So everybody benefits. I do support that. The larger expansion of the Beltway on the further east, I think we should wait on that, see what happens after this first stage goes forward, what happens to traffic patterns, and whether additional expansion is needed. That further expansion would be much more disruptive to the environment and to neighboring communities. And we ought to look at alternatives beyond expansion as well. I agree about the importance of transportation, and I'm a very strong supporter of mass transit. I support completion of the Purple Line. I support an east-west transit solution like the Red Line in Baltimore. I myself, I have ridden the bus to work for the past 25 years before I joined the race for governor. So I'm a supporter of mass transit, but I do also believe, traffic on the Beltway and elsewhere is a quality of life issue. It's an economic issue, as you pointed out. People need to get to their jobs. But it's also a quality of life issue. Nobody likes sitting in traffic. I do support the partial expansion of the Beltway that has been proposed in the southern part of I-270 and from the I-270 spur through the American Legion Bridge. What it will offer, that kind of approach, the approach that appears to be going forward there, the partial expansion, builds on a successful approach in Virginia. It will add additional lanes that that drivers can access for free if they have a during rush hour, if they have a high occupancy vehicle, 2 or more drivers, or if they're a single driver, they can pay a toll to access those lanes. And what it does is it ensures that even during rush hour, there is a non-congested alternative that they can use. It also has been found in Virginia to modestly reduce traffic in the regular lanes by providing an escape valve. So everybody benefits. I do support that. The larger expansion of the Beltway on the further east, I think we should wait on that, see what happens after this first stage goes forward, what happens to traffic patterns, and whether additional additional expansion is needed, that further expansion would be much more disruptive to the environment and to neighboring communities. And we ought to look at alternatives beyond expansion as well. That's right. That would be a much more disruptive than the current expansion that's going forward. We should consider alternatives there too. One that has been proposed would be trying on a pilot basis to take one of the existing lanes in that part of the Beltway, turn it into an HOV lane, as well as a toll lane in the way I just described, but it would be done with existing lanes. Try that on a pilot basis, see if that helps reduce traffic over a period of like 7 months, and then see if that works as a more limited solution that wouldn't require the disruption of a full expansion. Well, people can access them if they have 2 or more drivers in the car for free.
Got it.
So that, I think, is an important thing to note. Also, somebody, even if more moderate income, if they really need a non-congested alternative to get their kid from daycare or whatever it happens to be, or to get to work, it would be there for them. And in Virginia, where this has been done, it actually results, because it's an escape valve, it actually results in modestly less traffic on the regular lanes as well. So everyone would likely benefit from this. Well, I support the studies going forward there, the process, the evaluation process that's going forward. Based on the initial studies that have been done, it looks like that's been identified, the third span, as the most effective approach to addressing traffic issues, as opposed to building, another Bay Bridge. So I support the process of going forward with the additional studies. I think it's called a Tier 2 study, and to see the results of that. The biggest problem in Maryland's economy, by far, is the fact that the bottom 40% of Maryland households have seen stagnant wages since the 1980s, while income inequality has soared. And our state has made no progress reducing our poverty rate in more than 30 years. The American narrative of optimism and progress that we all knew after World War II, the rising tide to lift all boats, that no longer holds true for nearly half of people in our state. One of my main initiatives is to address that, and we would do it through programs and policies that have actually been tested and shown to make a big difference. I'll give you one example. One of my main priorities as governor at the very beginning of my administration would be to launch a statewide partnership with businesses to provide effective job training to every young adult in the state of Maryland who wants to advance. If it's done right, job training has been shown to increase earnings as much as 40%. But the key is to focus that training on fast-growing industries like IT or healthcare, and also to work hand in hand with employers who provide paid internships to the trainees. So under my plan, the state will pay for the training, the employers will pay for the internships, our economy gets skilled workers, everyone benefits from this. My running mate, the terrific Natalie Williams from Prince George's County, and our approach to solving problems is very different from the other candidates. What we all share, all the candidates share similar goals. We all want to improve education and economic opportunity and the rest. But our approach is different. Natalie and my approach is different. What the others are proposing is the same old worn out playbook of rolling out or launching or expanding one unproven government program after another and hoping it's going to work. We've done that. We've been doing that for decades. 20 years from now, will our children look back at this time and say that we faced all of these persistent problems, stagnant student achievement, stagnant wages, stagnant poverty, and just kept on doing the same thing again and again? Natalie and my approach is different. We are focused like a laser beam on expanding solutions that don't just sound like good ideas, aren't just spending money, aren't just well-meaning, but have actually been tested and shown to make a big difference in people's lives, like tutoring, statewide tutoring, as I described, and like the partnership with businesses to provide proven job training programs to young adults in our state.